Hello everybody, welcome to Nostalgia Goggles. I'm Chris, also known as the Retro Gaming Nerd, and new year, new things. I feel like I stuck to Nintendo a lot last year, and when it comes to nostalgia, Nintendo isn't the only thing that I had in the past. The show isn't 100% only about my nostalgia, it's about others, but I feel like these few episodes are definitely more catered towards me. With that being said, I loved Halo when I was younger. Halo was one of my favorite games of all time, and it still kind of is to this day. I do not have a physical copy of Halo anymore. I'm sorry, but today we are going to be reviewing Halo 1 Combat Evolved through the Master Chief Collection. Not only reviewing Halo 1, but also reviewing the anniversary version that came out later in life. We're gonna see if Halo is worth playing today. The first one. With that being said, let's get right into it. So Halo is one of the few times in video game history where the video game itself doesn't actually open up to the canonical beginning of Halo. Halo is a lot more complicated, and the place that this drops you off is a very interesting one because you start out on the Pillar of Autumn, and you wake up to find that you are a Spartan named Master Chief, and you guys are running away from a alien group called the Covenant, which you have been at war with. This game really doesn't focus on the war as much as the other Halo games does, because that's not the main point. This one is you're trying to escape and survive, because not only are you trying to escape the Covenant, alongside that escaping them, you find that there's a giant Halo ring and you escape to that, and eventually the game story turns into figuring out what the Halo ring is, seeing if you need to destroy it, finding out that the Covenant knows about it, and so on and so forth. There's a lot more that comes with it. It's about survival and escape more than a war type game, which is a thing that I'm bringing up because later Halo focuses more on the war aspect of it, such as Reach and even 2 and Wars. So this game doesn't mainly focus on that. It focuses more on the story and narrative point of kind of explaining what a Halo is. And I think that that's what really makes this one interesting. But all in all, the story is pretty good, I think, especially since it's different than what we normally have for Halo. And I don't think that there's a story that comes this close. Maybe Reach is the closest one, and Reach is better, mind you, but I feel like this one focuses more on a different aspect of Halo that I don't think we see a lot of. And also I simplified the crap out of it. There's more to it, but with that being said, let's move on to the gameplay. So when it comes to Halo, the gameplay is interesting, especially for the time, because at the time, this was a unique game. Console first-person shooters didn't look or feel like this. They felt very stilted, rough, and just nothing like this. Now, there probably was one that was closer to this, but I feel like Halo back in the day was closer to a PC kind of game when it came to gameplay. And I think that that's really awesome. Halo back in the day was a surprise, because this is a console shooter, but with PC quality, such as something like Half-Life and or, you know, even Quake at the time. And I think that that's very interesting, and I think that that's what makes it super fun. Halo's gameplay today might not hold everybody captive, especially in the world of Call of Duty and Fortnite, but I think it still works pretty well. I don't think it's the greatest, even looking back at it with the rest of the Halo games. I think one of the things that holds the gameplay back, in my opinion, is the weapon selection, but all in all, it's still pretty solid. Halo itself, within the first game, works out super well, and for the time it works out well, and even today it works out well. It's simple. You point, you shoot, you move on, and I think that that's what really makes this one great. It reminds me a lot of something more akin to Doom or Quake or Duke Nukem, where there's a story but you're kind of just running and gunning. And I think the thing that makes this also interesting is that the aliens are also not just something you can just point and shoot at, even though I said you do. It's not, it's more than that, because the enemies have shields, some do, some don't, and it's interesting to take these characters on. Hunters are one of the other things that makes it interesting, and even down to the Flood, where they're almost immortal and you have to handle them in a certain way. They're not immortal. I know that you can kill them, but they can regenerate and they're constant. This game is so unique for the time, and even then it's still unique today. And I think, with that being said, I think the gameplay definitely still holds up, but I'm not somebody that really keeps up with first-person shooters. I don't know how somebody that's coming from Call of Duty, Fortnite, or any of those other games are going to handle this one, but with that being said, since this is simpler, I think that this one will handle itself very well. I'm not going to talk about online with the Halo games because I just was not, either I wasn't there or I just didn't play it as much. So I feel like talking about online is pointless to me, but there is a way to play them, which is the Master Chief Collection, but I'm not going to talk about them. With that being said, let's move on to the presentation. So the interesting thing about me talking about this is I'm not just talking about Halo Combat Evolved itself, I'm talking about the remake that came with it, or the remaster, or whatever you want to call it. And I think both of them are very interesting because one follows the Halo Reach approach, and then the other is the classic one, which reminds me of games like Half-Life. And I really enjoy that. I actually find myself enjoying the classic version of this game a little bit more. I feel like there's a lot more charm. Not saying that the remake doesn't have it, actually, if anything, it does. I just am so nostalgic for that old PC era type game, and it just looks outstanding, and I love it. I even feel like there's some things that just don't hold up very well in the new one, or the remake, because one of the things that I really remembered heavily is that before you make it into the Flood, there's a hallway that is covered in blood, and in the remake, it's not as dramatic, and that's fine, but stuff like that, and also the way the design of the characters were, especially in the old one, and the new one's there, but once again, we've seen it before outside of the Flood. It's all in all together, the presentation is great. I think another thing that also makes this game great is the music that comes from this game being a very sci-fi sounding game, but more grandiose, with choirs and, you know, this grandiose soundtrack that really puts Halo on the map, and I think that that's what makes it great. All in all, the presentation for Halo Combat Evolved is phenomenal, and I actually like the older one better, and I know I already said that, but it's just there's something super unique about this game, and I just cannot get over it. It holds up on both ends, and that's phenomenal. With that being said, none of this matters if you can't get your hands on the game. Halo has came out on multiple systems, but Halo initially came out on the Xbox. The price of it will set you back $20 to $30, which I think is fine for the price. It also had a PC port, which will set you back about $20 to $7. It also had the Anniversary Edition, which will set you back $11 to $9, which is another great price. And last but not least, there is the Master Chief Collection, which is inconsistently priced. You can get this game from $30 to $20 at minimum, and even then you can get it lower. This game has multiple ways to play it, but I think one of the ways that I would definitely recommend it is through the Master Chief Collection or the Anniversary Collection. As much as I love the classic Xbox version of it, unless you're a collector, you have no real reason to have it. And even then, all of these games are super accessible, so I think that the best way to play it, in my opinion, in truth, is by just playing it through the Master Chief Collection, because you have every Halo game, to a degree, on that. So I think it's really cool because you can have it on your Xbox One or Xbox Series X or S, and having that allows you to play through almost every Halo game on one console, and that's what makes it great. All in all, I think that this game is super accessible, and no matter which way you have it, it will be pretty good. So let's move on to the goods and the bads. Halo is a game that I have a heavy bias towards, because I absolutely love this game and franchise to a degree. I fell out after a point, but Halo Combat Evolved, it puts me in a place where I don't exactly know how in touch I am, because I don't constantly play first-person shooter games. And Halo at one point, and I don't know if this was it, but Halo at one point was the it shooter. And I can absolutely see why, and I can absolutely see where Halo started here, and I think that that's good all in and of itself. I think some of the best things about this comes down to the way that it presents itself, and that the way that the gameplay is, right? Because when it comes down to it, first-person shooters were something more like GoldenEye, or, you know, like single-stick Quake on the Nintendo 64. Shooters were good. They were in a really good place, but if you didn't have a mouse and a keyboard, it just felt a little rough. And then here comes Halo, fixing all of that, being kind of the reason I feel like there's obviously other shooters, but I feel like Halo's one of them that stepped up and made an amazing console shooter. And I think that that's enough. And I feel like you can still feel that with the way that this game plays. Also, this game took itself, at least feeling like it took itself seriously enough from the story, but also the way that it presented itself musically. This game could have been just this techno fest, but instead it decided to take a grandiose, almost religious feeling soundtrack to it, and I think that that's really just what makes it great. It has its sci-fi-isms, it has its sci-fi moments within the music, but all in all, it feels like it takes itself seriously musically, and I think that that's what makes it all great. So all in all, I feel like Halo to this day is still a worth it experience. Now, I honestly have no clue. Like I said, I'm not heavily into first-person shooters today, but I feel like looking at what Halo did for them is enough for me to say that it holds up. After all, people still say GoldenEye holds up. So if that one does, I think I can confidently say Halo does. But I honestly don't know. I feel like I'm out of my depth, but I feel confident enough to say from my old ass, yes, I think that Halo holds up. Hear me out. The weapons kind of are okay. The lack of them sucks. I feel like it makes sense that there's not as many weapons. This is the first game. I can't give it too much shit, but I just feel like the weapons here are either overpowered or just okay. And I'm not saying, and I'm not even saying that they're bad, you know? I'm just saying I kind of wish that there was more. The ones that we have are very serviceable, very good, very fun, but yeah, that's it. That's all I have to really say. And that's great, because there could be a lot worse with this game. There might be some other things that I don't like, but none of them come to mind or are worth even talking about, because those come down to nitpicks. So with that being said, let's move on to the final thoughts. So is Halo 1 / Halo Combat Evolved / Halo Anniversary Edition worth playing today? The answer is yeah. I feel like we give a lot of leniency for first-person shooters, especially since people still to this day will claim that GoldenEye holds up. I am not saying it doesn't, I'm just saying I feel like if you're gonna say that one does, I think Halo definitely does. Especially since Halo changed the whole shooting genre. See, like back in the day we had to deal with one-stick shooters and yada yada, and if I could be honest, the best way to play those games were on the PC, still is to this day. But I feel like Halo came along and said, hey, we can make console shooters work too. Not saying that GoldenEye and or Perfect Dark and all these others didn't work out, it's just they didn't feel as good as Halo. Halo kind of pulled a Call of Duty of where it changed the way we play games so much so that, like, it feels a specific way. I say Call of Duty because now if you play a shooter, it feels closer to Call of Duty. But with that being said, though, outside of that, Halo also took itself seriously with a really well-done story and a whole bunch of things. You watched my video. With that being said, though, yes, I think Halo Combat Evolved is still worth playing today, especially with the Master Chief Collection. With that being said, what is your favorite first-person shooter? What's your favorite era? That's all I have to ask. I'll see you guys next time here on Nostalgia Goggles. Bye!